So I've got a hot take for you.
Yeah, hot take time. It's been a while.
I don't know, man. It doesn't look like 4th edition AOS is that different than 3rd edition AOS so far.
Is hashtag new AOS actually new?
It's just, did they just put a different like shell on it with like some different graphs and charts?
It definitely kind of feels like the difference between a make and model of car. You know, when they go between like 22 and 23 or something.
Like round the edges.
There's like an odd year where very little happens. Yeah. The front grille changes slightly.
Hey guys, welcome to another Lords of War Games and Hobbies video. I'm Chris, this is Jay. If you're just catching us for the first time, we do 2 videos a week like this where we just sit and talk about pertinent hobby things that are kind of on our minds. Sometimes philosophical, sometimes just about the industry or some releases that are on the horizon. So today we're going to chat a little bit about 4th edition Age of Sigmar and what they've kind of talked about so far and what we kind of are reading into it a little bit, into like what we would think about what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and I think if you go back and watch our series on the new Old World rules that came out earlier this year, I think it's prudent that we are also give the same, hot takes and granularity to that to AOS, even though that's maybe our favorite, well, at least my favorite game, because I think is similar.
Yeah.
I would say we knew this edition was coming. That's not new. What they were going to change was up in the air. Some things seem to be coming to fruition. One of the first things is the battle tome wipe. So what that means is all the current roster battle tomes will be taken out of the game. So if you own a book, you have a great fluff book, the back, 15, 20 pages are going to get replaced, which, you know what, is not the end of the world. It's, that you'll just get some more index cards for free on day one.
Yeah,
just download and put in your book. It's not really
disproportionately feels bad depending on which time you bought.
I think it's one of those things that obviously is like, if you got a Flesh Eater Tomes book, you're going to be like, wow, I got less than 6 months technically.
Yeah.
I think if you sit down and think about it somewhat logically, and this is not to say this is I don't agree. I think it's not great that they did this. I think in general, if you spent money on something, you hope that it lasts. But in terms of like practicality, it's not the end of the world. Like I said, you'll get some new data cards that you can probably just insert into your book or something, and the rest of the book stays the same. They're not changing the first 80 pages of the book or whatever.
Yeah, and I just hope, and I guess my only reservation so far is from what I've seen in terms of what they've shown off. I'm not seeing like book wipe levels of change.
Not yet. Yeah, they have not revealed a book wipe. Yeah, so usually when a book wipe happens, you assume that they need to make such fundamental changes to the core rules that they need to physically like rewrite all of the data cards or war scrolls to accommodate. So in 40K in this case, when they went from the 8th, 9th era to 10th, they changed enough. So basically, like they put the game back in what we call universal special rules, where a rulebook has a master set of all the keyworded special rules, and then the war scroll cards just reference them, rather than the war scroll card having its own named rule with specific. So, for example, it could be something as simple as a rule that gives you +1 to hit. Well, maybe now it's just everyone can reference this rule rather than everyone
precision hit,
exactly. Whatever you want to call it. That's probably like. I don't know about you, but I don't mind either. But it's probably better if you're going to manage a game like they're trying to manage. It's probably better to have an access to because then they can touch that rule later and it affects everyone. Rather than they don't have to rewrite all these books or things later, they can just post a thing that says, "Well, precision hits now work on 5s and 6s," and then everyone benefits instantly rather than
And I think I just need to see some of the new war scrolls and just to see where their heads at, because that's the main claim that they're making is that because we've had to redesign every single war scroll card in the game.
We need to see
we have to actually you can't use your old books anymore because literally every unit's different.
Yep. And
we're going to change how the war scroll looks. I mean, I just hope that it's not things like we've changed wounds to health, and that's the big dynamic change.
That is going to be a weird one, as they change wounds to health. And I have a feeling I didn't, up until just now, I was like, why would they do that? Because the word wound has been in their like vernacular for like ever.
It has, yeah.
And then I think because what we have to now do, and this confuses me sometimes, is you need a better way to differentiate wounds from damage. And when you hear the word wounds, or when they say something is wounded, people assume that means it's like already. You've already put a die next to it to represent
it's true,
some
they do
damage
have,
that's occurred.
I think this has been a confusing point in the past where like you have like rolling to wound.
Yes.
And then there's wounds, so it's like probably using the same word for two different things is probably not great.
Yeah, that's why they're trying it out. But it'll always be wounds in my head.
It's going to be weird. Yeah, I'm going to be how many wounds do you have left?
Health is going to be like...
How much health you got? Yeah, you're like, whoa, okay. That's okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Southern really
yeah, I did there, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. And we've also seen their sort of like approach to chopping the game up into little compartments into like sort of they have like their core rules, and then they have like module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or whatever, and each module adds like a chunk to the game that's more advanced.
So yeah, I mean for me this sounds like buzzwords and graphics, but I think what they're trying to do at the very least is, and this might be true, and I can see this from the perspective of, again, I think I told an anecdote in the previous video of a friend of ours who doesn't play any AOS, and he was watching us play at Adepticon, and he had so many questions, like what's going on now, and what's this, and what's that, and I suppose if you could break that into smaller pieces, and that way and actually Chris was teaching someone how to play like a month ago, and yeah, if you could be like, let's just play, I could give you this module and say, just read that and we'll play that, and then you can add them as you go. I don't think it's a bad idea, but to claim that it's like revolutionary is like, I think it's kind of like a really nicely tabbed,
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a self-report in a way
yeah.
too, where you're like kind of admitting out loud that your game is too complicated.
That's true.
I think and I'll wait and see. I'm always gonna play it and give it a great chance. Obviously,
sure.
Probably play it regardless of what it's like. To be honest,
yeah,
we just love it. So I'm so invested. But I think what we need to see still. I do like the idea of having clearly delineated just basic rules that you could like teach a new person. Mm-hmm. The question is though, and this is where like we're really at in today's kind of market, and when people come into the shop, if Games Workshop doesn't change how they market their own game, and what I mean by that is like what's Warhammer community talking about, how do they present Age of Sigmar on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Are we just going to be getting like more meta watch balance articles, match play stuff, or are they going to put effort into like broadcasting more of the basic rule stuff, more Spearhead, that sort of stuff, so it's more visible to new players and it encourages that play style a bit more? Because if that's not the case, nothing will ultimately change. If someone comes in and they still think that match play is the way, like playing with all 6 modules is the way to play, what ultimately has changed there, right? And I think like on another level, when you think about this, is like you're teaching a new player to play. Sure, they've given you like 6 steps or 6 games to introduce, but man, the idea that it would take 6 games to teach somebody like the whole shebang.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of. It is. It's a lot, right?
Like, yeah, I guess it is a lot. But maybe the argument is like, hasn't it always been like that? I guess
probably,
maybe.
And that's a fair point too, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I don't know. I'm gonna obviously compare 40K, like I'm going to compare 10th edition to 4th edition a lot as we do these videos, because I think 10th did a lot of things right in making their game simpler and removing a lot of that issue for new players to get into it.
10th is very easy.
So my that's going to be my big measuring stick, I think, for me personally, is like how easy is AOS going to be for new players or people to pick up.
Yeah. I mean, so sounds like at least what they've talked about is they're going to have these Spearhead boxes, which are AOS Age of Sigmar Combat Patrol, basically. So here's a set box of models with a data sheet or something in there, and in theory, you and someone can buy one each of any type and play against each other, and it's balanced and fair. And I think the idea is they want you to just use the first module, which will be the core rules. And then I guess maybe some additional... There's
a Spearhead module as well.
There's a Spearhead module, maybe some a few extra rules for that. And I don't know, but it sounds like it'll have like either very slimmed down or a very simple like hero phase, maybe not a lot of command points or maybe a few simple command abilities, and then it's just kind of just go and play with the models, which again is not a bad idea. Like the customers I have in mind that do partake in Combat Patrol, they like it a lot actually.
Yeah.
I've never really gotten negative feedback on it.
Ultimately, Combat Patrol's biggest like defeating thing, I think, is Games Workshop itself. Like they don't talk about it enough.
It's true.
And I
it's
really
old news right away.
Yeah, and I think like
you've never seen a grand finals Combat Patrol event or something or whatever where it's all that's never shown on camera.
And it's fun. It is a little funny, and maybe they know, like maybe they have data that tells them the people that are going to Warhammer community aren't newer people. Maybe that's what the data tells them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you would know that.
How
but
would you know that? Yeah.
There's probably a way.
Yeah.
And maybe that's
YouTube
why.
YouTube can tell how many women watch us, which is 0 apparently.
hey, there was like what are we doing, ladies? That's so offensive.
Let me take the ring off.
That must be it. Yeah. Back to Jay's taken. Yeah. But maybe they have some data on their back end that's suggesting why that's kind of leading them to post certain types of articles. You know what I mean? Like if they know, data shows them that predominantly returning customers or more,
maybe MetaWatch just gets more clicks and traffic in general than the rest do, which might be right. Maybe.
But fundamentally, I think this is probably a chicken and egg thing. Like I feel like sometimes like it would be a bit like running a Games Workshop and like kind of forgetting to run demo games and like forgetting about like introducing new players to the hobby, right? You still make most of your money off of your existing customers. So, to use this the sort of like comparison,
that's the money
you probably get
today.
more of your clicks off. Yeah. You get more of your clicks off people that are already in the hobby, sure. But what's it for?
Yeah.
What's it for, right? And I think that that's a tool they're kind of missing on Warcom in today's kind of thing is they're just saying, well, maybe because these articles get less clicks that it's not as valuable. Well, the data isn't weighed the same in my opinion. Like the value of having less clicks on like a Combat Patrol or more introductory thing might pay off in the long run, right? So I don't know. I think that's just maybe missed.
This we'll get it. This will be maybe a future video. I think this has to do with their problem with great content makers getting too popular and then too big for them,
right?
And then they. And then they, axe them or whatever, or package them out or etc. Wish them well. See you later. And so if you don't have, I think when they have the Duncans and the Louises or what, all these any of their great content makers, I think those people are for the new people. When they have the especially a guy like Duncan, because he's such a like regular guy in terms of like he's not. He's just a guy who likes painting. Like he's not over the top. He's like
we've met
just the right amount of funny.
He's very like sidled up next to me, and I was like, oh, it's Duncan Rhodes. Okay, cool. And we were chatting about Marmy, and
he just likes the hobby.
He's just kind of like a really quiet hobbyist.
Yeah.
And I think it's really relatable for people.
But you can tell from watching him on camera that if you get to know him a little, he's just like anyone else. Like, he's has fun playing, and he's reasonable. Anyway. Back to OS4 for a minute.
Oh yeah, that's what the video's about.
Right? Yeah.
This is what happens when you don't have like someone managing you from behind the camera.
No,
you just go off the chain.
There's no one else here. So maybe we'll get. So we've talked about the modular rules, the book wipe. The next big one is probably the one that gets the most comments in general. Is the priority roll / turn order / double turn. Yeah. So that's staying in the game. However you want to. There's lots of great opinions on both sides. I would say the most.
I think great opinions on both sides. I think there are opinions on both sides.
There are opinions. There is. I would say the majority of comments are always going to be the spicier.
Sure.
Just get rid of it. Why, etc. I think for Chris and I, it's a little different because for me, I don't even think it's not even just a weird fanboyism. I think it's just like it's always been there, so I don't know any better. And and it would, I think it would really be a weird. It wouldn't be Age of Sigmar. It would just be another game. I don't know. It is the one defining feature of the game that is unique across. And some people will say, well, what about the, I move a unit, you move a unit? That's fine too. There's lots of games that do that. I think in a grand war game like Age of Sigmar, you could probably argue, I know people are going to say, well, Star Wars Legion makes it work. Maybe. It might be too slow to do.
Legion's a smaller game still.
It's even less models. So at the scale of models that Age of Sigmar plays in, I think you need to still have the kind of everything going on at once.
Yeah.
And they've been tuning last season or this current edition. Their big thing was 3.0 was the beginning of trying to do something to make the second player have an important factor, and so they did that with scenarios. So there's for example there's a scenario called Nexus Collapse, which is it? Yes, I think it's Nexus Collapse. That is it's a big deal. So the player, it's not even the player who doubled it, it's the player who has less points gets to collapse objectives anywhere on the board. And so what the strategy is, people will purposely just not go on the objective, and then it's like, go ahead, double turn, because I have less points than you, and I'll continue. So I'm just going to remove the objectives that are convenient to you and force you to come to me. So,
right.
So that's again, in like, this is probably more of a strictly match play thing, to be honest. It really does make a difference, and they usually give more command points to the guy going second. So now what they're doing, they're going to take it the next step further. And they're going to say, if you're in the position to take two, so double turn is being able to, if you go second, for example, and you win the priority roll, and then go first the next turn, you've now gone twice before your opponent has in a row. The guy, if you have the option of a double turn, you're going to forego or relinquish your option to win, to score a battle tactic that turn. So that immediately is like, whoa, that's pretty big, actually. Where it gets a little worrisome, because those of us that play a lot, is what about late game? Let's say Chris and I are playing, and I'm beating him by a point, and I win the roll because it's the guy who wins gets to chooses.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, go ahead, double. Why don't you, or I won't take it, or what? I can force it on him basically, and then he doesn't get to.
Yeah, because if you win the priority roll, you choose, right?
Choose.
So you could conceivably force your opponent into a double turn.
Yeah.
At a point where they don't want to,
you could just
miss out on a battle tactic, right?
So
it's too crucial to the game.
Yeah,
so
now, those of you that might have taken that and assumed like the worst doom and gloom, and how there was a lot of immediate like, oh, this is stupid, and I can't believe they screwed this up so bad. Just chill.
Well, they can write the rule in a way that completely makes that impossible, right?
Yeah, I think likely some things that we need to still factor is we don't know what primaries are going to score. Like if primaries right now in 3.0, the most you can score off a main objective or primary objective usually is 3 points a turn, and then the secondaries are worth 2. So they're actually pretty close. Like the primaries are still worth more, but the secondary is close enough that you still want to score it every turn, which is why we had that visceral reaction of like, oh god, what do you mean I can't score those 2 points? But perhaps for primaries worth, let's say 4, then maybe it's like a little bit less. You might miss a battle tactic and you not sink your game horribly. And then I think they're going to introduce some sort of, they hinted at it about, I don't know if they're going to call it a gambit or something, but in 40K there's long shot objectives that you need to score lots of points.
Right.
So that may also factor in, but I don't know. I don't mind it. It's not going to really move the needle too much for me, like in terms of, probably for me, I'll probably like whatever change they make.
Yeah, I think the concept is good. I think because like the trade-off is like, okay, I want to go again, because usually the go again thought process, if you are double turning, is you're trying to like remove enough of your opponent's army that it makes it hard for them to kind of come back from the game, right? So that to me feels like a good trade-off to lose some actual objective points.
Yeah,
like thematically it makes sense.
Yes.
Because your guys are going in.
You're not going to stand on the circle. You're going to go in.
They're going in, right? So I like that thematically, and I think if they pull it off correctly with the points, and I think the way to write the rule and not have any kind of like devious intentions happen is that you can only choose yourself if you win the priority roll to take a double turn. I think that would eliminate the bad outcomes of that rule.
Yeah. I don't know. It's or maybe they did their testing. Testing.
The studio loves it.
The studio loves it.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. But I think it'll be fine. I don't know. I don't know if it'll really. But overall, I like the thought process. to say like, okay, again, if you want to go twice, you are going to lose something significant to you. And as we've played many times, a double turn is not the end of the world for if you're getting double turned, or even when you get to double turn, because most people that play enough AOS, they quickly figure out that there's there's times when you go for it, and there's times where you like just don't, because you're like, you do the calculations and you're like, I might run into you, I might fight you a bit, but then am I gaining enough? I probably not. And then
you also open yourself up to being double turned.
Then you get doubled back, and it can be worse if you. I've seen whiffed charges, and now you're just stuck there.
Well, and I always fall back on this point. I think which is I think makes the most sense to me when I play, is that almost all damage is done in combat.
Yes,
which is alternating actions. So
that's right.
This complaint that like, oh my god, a double turn, I lost the game all the time. It's like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you physically doing in the game? Like, I get it. There's some armies that shoot you. Like, sure, those armies are
it can be tough.
Can be tough if you get double turned, but like fundamentally, the game is just as unfair to them. Yeah. Because when they get double turned by Iron Jaws, you know, and they're getting Gore-Grunt, they cannot win that game.
They cannot
right?
win that game.
So that's a trade-off that they're making with their list building.
So the argument will be list building. Yeah.
So ultimately, that's always going to be in the game. That's just a matchup thing, right?
I think. I don't think for those of you that are like really like, you know, I hate it. I wish they got rid of it. I'll never touch that. I'm like, well, you're going to be. I don't think they're ever. I think as long as Age of Sigmar is a property, it will be there, and they're not going to take it out. I
mean, like, there's so many. Every other game has just regular turn order, and like, I don't know, like, there's something cool and neat about unpredictable. Like, you can't count out the turns and how they're going to happen. There's something interesting about that.
Yes,
that makes you not able to think ahead too much. Yeah, and I like that. There's like a fog of war almost a little bit next turn, which I think that's cool. Like, I mean, in 40K you can do the math and you can be like, oh, this shooting phase, and then I get another. You can really and you can kind of math it out a little bit too much sometimes. I think,
40K you can kind of spreadsheet talk it out. Age of Sigmar is much harder. Okay, last little bit of new and changing and whatever you want to call it, new and exciting, is they have reduced the size of the objective footprint.
And the combat range is universal.
The combat range is universal. So the objective one, we've done our own little research here. It is actually significantly smaller. It's gone from 6 inches in diameter, 6 inches radius, so from a 12-inch diameter, huge pie plate, to 7.5 diameter. So it's like a 40% drop in size.
Yeah, that's significant.
Maybe more, So, and I did check, because we were curious about it. It is still just bigger than the biggest monster base, because I think the biggest monster is like 160 mils, and the 7.5 was 150.
But effectively, a big monster is going to be able to basically zone out.
It can significantly zone an objective
out but to the point where it's almost impossible to take it without killing it.
Now where this will potentially matter or change is I have a feeling, they haven't revealed it yet, and I have no inside knowledge, but I think they might bring in the OC stat from 10th and 40K, which is the objective control stat.
Interesting.
And if you have models that now can be worth 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever number they want, then I hope they.
It just makes sense that they would do that because they already use that in the game, but it's hidden in the rule book, right? So putting it on the war scroll would just make sense.
It's the way it is in the rule book. It's like everyone's worth 1, and sometimes monster or like 5 wound guys are worth 2, and then if you're a monster, you're worth 5, and then it. I just find the way models look, it can be hard because you're like you see like.
You get weird things like Croxagors that are 4 wounds. Your Crocs had 4 wounds, now have 5 wounds.
You see a Croxagor and you might be like, is that worth 2 or 1 or what is that?
Exactly.
It is. I kind of don't. I like the idea that you can really play around with it, and you can have spells that play around with it and abilities.
Well, it's another meter that each unit gets to make it interesting, right? So it's another little bit of variability they get between books and units to make things more interesting.
Exactly.
Like you can make.
Or a debuff, you could make something worth 0, or whatever. Actually, there's 2. Yeah, and we mentioned the other one. We'll kind of finish off the video quick on a couple small things. So the other one was the universal combat range. So it's just if you're within 3 of an enemy, regardless of your weapon reach, you get to strike. So that's nice. That's great for.
I like that
for all of that medium, all that 32 mil. and 40 mil type of model that normally would just never get to fight. There was no incentive to take 10 Blight Kings other than the sheer number of wounds.
You know what sucks? Not using your stuff.
Using your stuff.
I think that's the worst feel bad in any miniature game. It's like, I have these 6 Kurnoth Hunters, they look awesome.
Yeah.
But 2 get to fight.
They have to be in this little package. Well, it also meant we never took swords because of the reach was...
Now you can take whatever cool weapon you think is awesome. Yeah, I like that.
And the last little thing, it sounds like, if I recall, there's no battle shock.
Right.
Is supposedly gone. They've kind of messed with it. I don't know. Yeah, I would still like to be, there'd be some sort of morale system, or whatever it's called, but I do appreciate that it is always like an extra thing that would kind of just...
You can make the argument that it either doesn't matter at all,
exactly,
or matters way too much. I think that's probably the argument you could make.
Yes.
And it just overly punishes certain battle tomes, and other ones get to just basically not even think about it ever, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's necessarily a good rule. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a problem with how they designed it. Maybe giving bravery 10 to about like half the game was a mistake, in hindsight.
Yeah, I mean, a piece of me, I get why they got rid of it for simplicity and for the way the board would look and everything, but I don't know. Maybe models actually running away is kind of has a charm to it, like falling back and stuff. I don't know. It's kind of maybe. I
mean, it's a part of wargaming history for sure.
It is.
So I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about
what do you want to see?
US 4th so far? Mm-hmm. Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic?
Are you going to play it for the first time? Is it going to get you to play? I know of at least one person that's going to jump in and play AOS.
Yeah, I would say there's a handful of people that are kind of starting to show interest around the shop. Yep. I mean, the wonderful thing about every new edition is that it provides an opportunity for like a jump-in point.
Yes.
That feels good and safe and like kind of
so safe.
Yeah,
so good.
So, well, if you like this video, please give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. You can also check us out on Patreon, where you can give us a tip, and we will have some special content for members coming soon. So check us out. Until next time, take care, guys.
Bye.